My 83-year-old mother has come to stay with me for the weekend. We are sitting on my sun porch, watching the birds on the feeder. A nuthatch is hopping his way down the tree toward the food. A year ago, my mother would have been able to identify the nuthatch so easily that she would have dismissed it out of hand. "Look at that funny little bird," she says. "He's upside down. Just look at him." She laughs and points. She looks to see if I am seeing what she sees. I nod, but I am startled. "Do you have a bird book?" she asks. I hand her my binoculars and bird book, both of which she gave me years before. She has been an avid birder for as long as I can remember. As a young girl, I used to read on our patio as my mother scanned the trees with her binoculars. The silence would be interrupted only by her calling out the name of any interesting bird that she spotted. I was awed by how many names she knew. Some days she would show me how to spot a bird in the trees, how to locate it quickly with the binoculars, how to focus each lens independently. Best of all was when she taught me how to identify the birds by using the pictures in her book. Some days I tested her. "What's that one?" I asked, pointing to a small black and white bird perched on a nearby tree. She glanced in the direction that I was pointing. "That's a nuthatch," she said, without a moment's hesitation. She raised her binoculars again and pivoted her gaze in another direction. "How do you know?" I persisted. "See the way he hops down the tree?" As if on cue, the bird began his descent. I couldn't understand how she knew that what the bird was doing, since she was no longer looking at it. I stared hard at the back of her head, wondering if she might really have eyes there. "He's the upside-down bird," she continued. "He walks down the tree instead of up, which is what all the other birds do." "Why does he do that?" I asked. "He's a nut job," she said, laughing. She put down her binoculars and looked over at me, which makes it really easy to remember his name. The nut job is a nuthatch. "I can remember that," I said with confidence, pleased to discover that this birding thing wasn't so hard after all. Now, almost 40 years later, my mother doesn't recognize the nuthatch. Her own funny mnemonic eludes her. As she leafs through the bird book, I wonder if the pictures will be of any help. "This is a great book," she says. "There's a whole section on how to identify the birds. It says you can tell them apart by the markings on their wings and the lengths of their tails." I am stunned to hear her proclaim this as a novel discovery. It's like watching another piece of her falling away. Dementia has been eroding her memory. The first to go was her short-term memory. Now her long-term memory is dissolving. Her personality will be vacating the premises before too long. Bird by bird, she is being reduced to a husk. "What's that one?" I ask, pointing at the nuthatch. I try to make it sound like I don't know. My mother raises the binoculars to her eyes. She sweeps her gaze around the yard before she finally aims at the right tree. After struggling to focus, she hands them back to me. "These are broken," she says dismissively. "Maybe you can identify him without the binoculars," I suggest. "Identify who?" she asks, looking at me blankly. "The bird," I say. "He's still on the tree, right next to the feeder." I point again at the nuthatch. My mother looks, and with her once characteristic, sharp-eyed precision, she spots the bird. "That one's easy," she says. "That's a nut job. See how he hops down the tree?" "So he does," I say. "Hand me those," she says, reaching for the binoculars. A red bird just landed on the feeder. Before I can hand her the supposedly broken binoculars, the brilliant red male cardinal takes flight. "Never mind," she says. "You're too late. She's gone." "Yes, she is," I say.